that's written by Nathalie Trowbridge. Now, Nathalie Trowbridge, just a brief about the author. She was born on February 2, 1975, and as a wife of Belgian ambassador to India, she traveled in various cities of the world with her husband. Now, this is a chapter where she's talking about the imbibing cultures of the various cities she visit. Right? I'm not going much in detail about all these. Basically, she's an art historian who came in limelight because of a translated work, City of Legends, a book by William Dalrymple. Now she now plans to write a textbook on Old Delhi architecture like Jamia Masjid and Chandni Chowk. Now, see, this is basically a chapter which deals about various art forms. I'm not talking the various art forms in terms of modern art or abstract art, what all you people might have learned in your art class in school also. Here, basically, the authoress is contrasting Chinese art with European art, right? By using two different stories, and that tell us how the Chinese view of art differ from the European view of art. Now, a European painting reproduces an actual view. The major difference they are pointing at this is not a story which is in a flow. Rather, it's a piece of information we can say about two art forms, Chinese and European. Chinese and European art. The two art forms are totally different from each other in their form, in their design, and in their meaning they convey. It's absolutely different, right? So, a European painting reproduces an actual view, whereas a classical Chinese painting is an unreal one. European is which gives you a true picture, but a Chinese one is which takes you into a different world, which transport you into an imaginative world. The European painter wants a viewer to look at a particular landscape exactly as he saw it, right? Now, if the person who is painting, he has his own perspective. The European painter wants that the viewer should understand his perspective and should view the painting from his perspective only. But the Chinese painter gives you an openness, right? He does not choose a single viewpoint. You can travel it in from any point. It is an open one where you can transport yourself into an imaginative world wherever you wish to go. So the Chinese landscape is not real, but a spiritual and the inner one. So that is the difference. The major difference between the two is here. Now, moving on further, as this is the recap of the session, Landscape of the Soul in detail, we have already read the text. I've explained you in detail. So this is a summarization I'm giving it to you. So please listen it very carefully. Now here the writer contrasts the Chinese art with European art by using two stories, as I told you. Now the first story was about the commissioned the painter by create a palace wall. Now this, he was a famous painter, Wu Daozi, and in order to decorate a palace wall for the emperor, he really put in a lot of effort. And when it was done, the emperor really admired the painting. The painter drew the emperor's attention to a cave. When he clapped his hands, the entrance of the cave opened. Now, in the painting itself, there was a cave, but it was in a way that when the painter would clap the hand, the door of the cave would open. The painter entered it. They could step inside the painting in the cave. That was the way he made the painting. So the painter entered, but before the emperor could move, the entrance closed. But before the painter entered into the cave, and he asked the emperor to come inside. But before the emperor could enter in, the door closed, right? And the painting vanished along with the artist, and the painting vanished along with the artist. Now, this is something which we say it's fiction. How is this possible in real world? You can say that there's a painting on the wall, and the painting has a cave, the painting has an entrance. The painter entered into the cave and he was asking the emperor to follow him. But before the emperor could do so, the door closed and the painting disappeared. This is absolutely, we do not find it real. We say this is you know, something which is actually fiction. How is this possible? This is not possible in real world, where the man went and where his painting. How come his painting disappeared? Was there a ghost? Was there a spirit in the cave who had eaten up? Was there a spirit in the painting itself? So these are the questions which are unanswered. But yes, that's the story which the authoress is telling about one of the European paintings. Sorry, this is one of the Chinese paintings. Now, in another story, a painter wouldn't draw the eye of a dragon he had painted for fear it would fly out of the eye. Now, there was another story where a painter didn't draw the eye of the dragon because the dragon was so real and he was so firm on it that the moment he completed the dragon and his eye, the dragon would fly away. So the writer then cites a story representative of Western painting in which a master blacksmith, Queenston mistresses, fell in love with the painter's daughter. Yes, this is another important story which is important here. In this story, a blacksmith falls in love with the daughter of a painter. Now, to be accepted as a son-in-law, Quentin painted, he entered his studio and he painted a fly without being noticed. Means the painter didn't notice that somebody had entered in and Quentin drew a fly on his latest painting. When the painter tried to swat it, now painter, in order to swat it, you understand the meaning of the term swat. To swat is to fly it away. Right? Generally, mosquitoes or flies, if they are somewhere around, if they are irritating us, we swat them away. So in order to, he tried to swat it away, that it was not a real mosquito, rather it was just a painting. So he was so much, you can say, impressed by his work, by his piece of art, that he hired Quentin as an apprentice or as a trainee. And later on, this Quentin, he married his beloved. Right? Now, these two stories reveal what each form tries to achieve. The Europeans want a perfect illusionistic likeness, while in Asia, it is the essence of inner life and spirit. In Chinese story, only the artist knows the way within and he reaches his goal beyond material appearance. Okay? So Chinese, again, the artist knows what it is. Unlike a Western figurative painting, a classical Chinese landscape does not reproduce an actual view and one can enter it from any point and travel in it. A classical Chinese one is where the person can enter from any point and he can travel anywhere. It requires the active participation of the viewer both physically and mentally. The European painter wants a viewer to borrow his eyes. As I told you earlier also, European painter, he wanted that the viewer should look at the painting from his perspective. The way he has drawn it, the thoughts which he had in his mind, he wants the viewer to view it from the same point of view. The Chinese painter does not want him to do so. He wants the viewer to enter his mind. The landscape is an inner one, spiritual and conceptual space. Just a second, please wait. Wait for a while and we can give up our pause here, right? So various stories have been dictating here. I'm moving on to the text again. Please look at the screen. Now, this concept, the European painter wants a viewer to borrow his eyes. The Chinese painter does not want him to do so. He wants the viewer to enter his mind. The landscape is an inner one, a spiritual and a conceptual space. Now, this concept is expressed as shanshui, which literally means mountain water. So used together, they represent the word landscape. Now, this concept is expressed as shanshui, which means mountain water, which is used together and they represent the word landscape. That's it. Here we end up this chapter.